Okay, now do not be alarmed, but yes, I'm your transgender comedian for this evening.
Woo! Yeah!
Oh, thank you. Yeah. I just like to put that out early, you know, like for legal purposes. Later on, I don't want one of you guys saying, oh, I didn't know. You do. You so knew.
Brandi Morgan is one of the most unique comedians I have ever met. She's one of the funniest comedians I've ever been in the audience for. Her act is unforgivingly raunchy as it is funny. It is as funny as it is unapologetic. And Brandi Morgan is transgender, so I thought it would be interesting to get her viewpoints on the topics I'm exploring. So how long have you been performing and how did you get your start in comedy?
Probably about 10 years now, I think, more or less. Well, so frankly, it's, well, when I first started coming out as trans, you know, it's kind of a long process and you spend all your life kind of hiding it. And once I started going out, you know, and people were accepting me, I thought, hey, I could be a little more expressive. So I started doing some drag performing, certainly not RuPaul's Drag Race quality, but, you know, I did a few shows and I was kind of okay at it. Frankly, most of the girls were like a lot younger and a lot prettier, but they kind of humored me because I was so enthusiastic. And then one day I asked, well, when you do drag, you lip sync 2 songs. And so one time I asked, I had a show of Fusion. I asked if I could do 1 song and then do like a few minutes of stand up. And they let me and it went over okay. I mean, it wasn't great, but for the first time, you know, it kind of worked, you know, it worked. And so I, you know, didn't do anything for a little while, but then the station started doing open mics. And then I tried it there and, you know, people seemed to like it. So, you know, I just went on from there.
How would you describe your style of comedy?
Well, mostly it's about, you know, a lot of it. I do a little bit of political stuff, not a lot of political stuff. I do some observational stuff. And I do kind of a lot of stuff just kind of making fun of me too. So, and kind of my motto is nobody can make fun of me like I can make fun of me. And also part of this, you know, being trans, you know, yeah, you know, you're kind of automatically a target in some ways. So by just, you know, by being upfront with it and making the jokes myself, it kind of diffuses that. Are you inspired by any comedians? Well, George Carlin was probably the main one I admired. I admired. He was, yeah, I mean, he's the number one comedian. If you ask me, he's my favorite of all time. You can tell he was always one of those guys who was really obsessed with the language. I mean, this is a guy who really paid attention in English class because the way he used language was probably way better than probably any comedian, you know. You know, some of his bits were getting to the essence of the word itself. You know what I mean? Like he only break down words as far as vowels and consonants sometimes, which is like way down in the weeds language-wise. But I could tell he really paid attention in English class. So.
And how would you define PC culture?
Okay, well, you know what? Anymore, and I've been thinking about this. I've been thinking about this, and I've been thinking about cancel culture. And anymore, I don't know what it means anymore. You know, because it's one of those things that gets batted around so much that it almost becomes meaningless. You know what I mean? You know, it's a lot of times it's like just a political buzzword. You know, and so, you know, what is PC? I don't know. Frankly, I don't know what it is anymore. You know, it's, you know, I think the original meaning was, you know, I think at its base originally, PC was to me anyway, just meant treat people like they would like to be treated. But, you know, to some people, that's like just such a terrible thing to ask people to do. You know, it's like, you know, refer to people the way they would like to be referred to. Oh my God, I can't do that. That's like.
So would you say PC culture has an effect on comedy?
I think it probably has. Well, I mean, I think obviously it probably has some effect, but I think a lot of people, blame political correctness for their own. Like I've heard a lot of comedians who, you see this a lot in comedians just starting out. Like they'll be super offensive, and they kind of confuse being offensive with being funny. And so if they don't get, if they don't get any laughs or they don't get booked, they're like, oh my God, wow, the audience didn't like me because I was too edgy. When really edgy just means not funny, but they don't see it that way. So, so, they blame, I couldn't, gee, I did 10 minutes of rape jokes and, nobody laughed. And, so obviously they're picking on me because, it's not my fault for making bad jokes. It's their fault for not accepting my rapey humor. You know what I mean? Yeah, I think it's that way in a lot of ways. People like, I heard people say like, well, I miss the good old days when you could say stuff and not worry about offending people. And yeah, everybody gets offended too easily these days. Well, back in the old days, people got offended too. It's just you got away with it, and people are less, but it used to be you could say the N-word in jokes and, and black people would get offended, but they didn't say anything. Well, now they say anything. So, yeah, probably not best for you to use the N-word. And, I think you can be funny without using the N-word. You're responsible for your humor. You're responsible for what you say. So if you get called out on it, it's, well, that's the risk you take. And, every time, and I'm not, saying I'm on a high horse. I know I do a lot of material that's questionable. So, but, you have to own it. And so if you, if you say stuff and, I get called on it, you have to take your lumps on that. You can't just say, oh, you're just picking on me because of, because I'm not PC enough. Well, no, you said some nasty shit and you're being called out for it. So deal with it.
What are your thoughts on cancel culture?
I guess that kind of mirrors like cancel culture too. I keep hearing about, and that's another term that's used so much I don't know what it means anymore. But like with this recent Joe Rogan thing, conservatives are, oh my God, cancel culture. They're canceling Joe Rogan. Well, Joe Rogan's got $100 million, still on Spotify, millions of listeners. How is he getting canceled? I don't know. I don't know how that works. So I'd like to be canceled with $100 million. So, yeah. Yeah, same thing with the other name is bandied about is David Chappelle. And of course, it's the same thing, and frankly, I think, like his first 3 Netflix specials ago, he started making fun of trans people. He got a lot of pushback. And I think it's like you said, he got, he had freedom of speech and people had freedom of speech to complain about it. And of course, that automatically, started the whole thing. Oh my God, they're trying to cancel David Chappelle. So his next multi-million-dollar Netflix, same thing. I think he leaned a little harder into the anti-trans stuff, got more pushback, and that led into his third Netflix special, for $20 million, where, again, he's not canceled. I think he was actually, I think he was pushing that just for the controversy, just to generate views. So, yeah, so I don't think he got canceled either. So,
What is your process of writing a joke?
Sure. Set up misdirection punchline. Set up misdirection punchline. Set up misdirection punchline. And that's like, I see a lot of comedians who somehow just don't get that message. And they think, oh, hey, I'll just go up and riff for 10 minutes, because I'm funny, because Neb from accounting thinks I'm funny. So, so I just go up and talk, I won't prepare anything. I won't write any jokes. I'll just, go up and talk and people laugh. And it's really more complicated than that. You really have to, you have to write jokes. You have to prepare. You have to practice. You have to work at it. Yeah, well, yeah, I'll get an idea in my head and I'll bounce it around for a while. I don't write, I don't write a joke a day or anything like that, but I'll work on a bit and I'll work on it. I'll work on it quite a while, actually. And, when it comes time for oftentimes I'll, write it down in like a Word document, and I'll write the bit down, and I'll skip a line after every punchline, so I can kind of judge the flow of the joke. And if if I write more than 2 or 3 lines before the punchline, the setup's way too long, in my opinion. So I've worked around. I've taken out 1 or 2 words in a setup, and it really, it does make a difference. So I kind of look at it. I don't know, this might sound a little pretentious. I almost look at it like poetry. I really pay attention to each word in the setup, how long the setup is, what the punchline is. And another thing you have to do is, if you just write them down, you have to practice saying them out loud, because sometimes words just don't go together well, or they'll blend together, or it's just, it's easy to screw up the pronunciation. So, once you write a bit, practice it and keep practicing it. I do it a lot in my car, actually. Driving to and from my day job, you're in your car, anyway, you're not doing much anyway. So that's a good time to practice. People stuck in traffic next to me might wonder what I'm doing, but. And one time I actually did this before a gig. I was kind of walking around outside, and I was practicing my lines. So what I did was I took my phone and I just kind of had it. I didn't turn it on, but I put it up to my head so people would think I was, I was like crazy or something. Of course, if you have a gig in Chinatown, you don't need to do that, because you can just talk. Yeah, in Chinatown, it's fine anyway. So.
And what would make the comedy in Hawaii different from other places?
Well, for one thing, I think people are generally pretty accepting. I hear all these horror stories about, well, for one, for female comics, and so in some cities it's just terrible for female comics. They have to, guys, hitting on them all the time, guys stalking the female comedians, or trying to get sex in trade for bookings and that kind of stuff. And I haven't experienced any of that here. And being a trans comedian, I think everybody's been super accepting. The 1 or 2 exceptions, but most people have, are really pretty cool. I think extremely cool about it. So, and I think we're pretty much supportive of each other. It's kind of a close, well, it's kind of insular, but I guess being in the middle of nowhere, frankly, I kind of wish I lived in like LA or something, so I could branch out a little more, but but I do appreciate the scene here.